Hi guys, I'm Gaurav, and I'd like to share one fun fact about me. I'm a petrol head. Basically, I like motorcycling, and I've gone. I because I studied in Manipal, I've gone to a lot of places in Karnataka, and the longest drive I did in a day was about 700 kilometers, and the ride time was about 20 hours. So that was probably one of my best bike rides.
Wow. Um, any other like memorable bike rides? Like, have you done any motorcycling in the north
Yeah,
of India?
yeah. Not in the north, but there was this one very memorable bike ride where one night, just spontaneously, my friends and we opened Google Maps and we picked one spot. It was a temple, and we decided to ride to the temple.
Mm.
It could have been a very small temple with no significance, but it turned out to be a very big temple, and like there were a lot of people, and it was a good place. It was a fun trip, and we had no idea. There was no planning whatsoever. It just zoomed on map and we picked the location. That's it. And that was one of my best trips.
Okay. And so I'm actually not into motorcycling at all. Maybe it's something fun I should try. But like, what do you actually enjoy so much about just being on the motorcycle and riding down like a highway?
Yeah. Somehow it just opens up your mind, like it's just the joy of doing nothing but being on the bike. Like at the end of it, like more than reaching a place, you like the journey, like you traveling, seeing an empty road with nothing hindering you from uh you know pushing kilometers behind you. It just feels good.
Yeah, I love it. Like
Yeah,
journey over
yeah,
the
yeah,
destination.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. It
that's
opens up your mind. That's all. Yeah,
Oh, yeah, I love it. I love the quote of like the journey is much more important than actually where you end
exactly.
up going.
Yeah,
That's so true of my podcast in that I've been
correct,
hitting milestones in terms of the numbers. But what's been more
correct.
important for me is like each conversation, I'm learning
Yeah,
something, I'm meeting new people, I'm improving my skills. That's what's more important than like reaching a milestone
correct.
of the podcast, actually.
100%.
Um,
Yeah,
Awesome. I will do your formal intro for the listeners, and
sure.
then I'm excited to get into the episode after that. But for the listeners who sort of don't know too much about you, that's Gaurav Girish. He, in fact, is about to graduate. He's going to graduate in
Yeah,
November from
yeah,
the Manipal Academy of Higher Education, so MAHE for short.
yeah,
That's how I'm going to be referring to the university in this episode. That's in Karnataka, and he was pursuing clinical pharmacy. Today, we'll just be chatting more about
yeah.
the choices he's made, the lessons he's learned along the way, as well as any sort of insight or guidance or advice which he'll have to share for high schoolers listening who are about to jump into like this new world of university, jump out of home, be in a new place in a new environment, get into like the next phase of their life in the form of university. So, welcome to the podcast. This is Uni Unveiled. I'm your host Arya Darod. I study at Minerva University. Welcome, Gaurav. Excited to have you on the podcast.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. We'll jump into it. I know I
Sure.
mentioned you're graduating in just a couple of months.
Yeah,
You've spent, as you said very nicely, like about half a decade
yeah,
in this institution
exactly.
with the same people. How does
Yeah,
it
yeah.
be graduating very soon?
So I feel very out of place not being in Manipal. Like I said, I've spent more than 5 years in the place, and after you spend 5 years, you tend to think you belong to that place. Like when somebody asks me where are you from, my hometown's Bangalore, but the first thing comes to my head is Manipal.
Hmm.
So and it was a very safe place inside the university. Like I felt like a baby inside the eggshell, and now it feels like it's time to hatch.
Mm, that's
So
nice. That's nice. In fact, it's so funny. I spent just a year in San Francisco, and
yeah,
everywhere in the US, if someone was like, "Where are you from?" the first thing that came to my mind was sort of, "I'm from San Francisco,"
yeah,
and then they're like, "So you were born and brought up there?" I'm like, "No, no, no. I spent a year there. I'm originally from India."
yeah, exactly.
It's
You
interesting.
feel so good in that place that you
Yeah.
tend to say you're from from your university town.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It becomes your second home. Um,
exactly.
and that's a very good thing, I think, being
Yeah,
outside of the place where you were actually born and brought up and doing university in a different city or a different country. I think that has
100%.
its own set of like learnings.
Yeah.
So yeah, very cool. If I had to, this might be a challenging question. If I had to like force you, in fact, to describe the entire 6 year experience at Mahe in any one or two interesting sentences, what do you think comes to your mind immediately?
I can say it's the easiest place to live, I can say, because it's a university town. Like it, everything is thought for already. Mahe has been a university for more than 50 years. Actually, around about 75 years. So they have thought about everything that a student might need:
Hmm.
sports, recreation, leisure, entertainment, everything, all the boxes are ticked. The
Hmm.
library is just perfect.
Hmm.
And every year they make a change to the university such that it makes the student's life just a bit easier. So it's a very easy place to live. There's no uh, traffic. There's nothing there's just nothing you have to worry about. You just have to sit, study, chill, enjoy your time. That's it.
Hmm.
So probably the one sentence would be easiest place to live.
That's a I mean that sentence I'm sure doesn't apply to like every city in India or even in the world.
Yeah,
Like this is a very
exactly.
rare
Yeah,
combination. But in fact, as I was telling you before we started recording, I actually
yeah,
went to Manipal for
yeah,
a week summer camp twice, so
yeah,
2 years. I spent three weeks in Manipal, and there's something about the vibe of the place which is like very
yeah,
nice, very natural.
exactly. Yeah,
A good vibe for actually like just learning and growing as a person,
exactly. Yeah,
um, filling your mind with like knowledge and wisdom.
true,
Uh,
true.
and absolutely a quiet place away from the hustle
Yeah,
and bustle of everything else,
exactly.
but full of like students
Uh,
and young
yeah,
energy.
though it's a small town, you'll miss nothing that you would if you were in a city.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like there's almost every facility that you'll find in a big city like Bangalore. Like,
Yeah, it's like best of both worlds.
yeah,
Uh,
best of both worlds.
Sounds good. If I were, this is a question I actually am enjoying asking alumni. It's slightly a challenging question,
Sure,
but I feel like if I can get alumni to open up about this, if someone
sure.
listening in high school, if someone listening to the episode is in high school, they
Yeah,
actually have an idea of like mistakes not to make at university or like
yeah,
what to do so that they don't end up graduating with like certain big regrets because all of us
yeah,
graduate with like these few regrets. I could have done this much better. So minimizing that as much as possible is like very important. Having that memorable university experience,
yeah,
feel like you enjoyed what how you spent your time. So if I had to like push you and sort of ask if you could rewind in time, change anything, is there anything that you would like have done differently over the last 6 years at Mahe?
yeah. So actually, this may not be very apt to all the audience listening for it now, but in hindsight, I believe I could have used the 1.5 years I had off during COVID in a better way. Like I think I could have been more efficient with the time I had. Like I did learn a few skills online, but I genuinely feel I could have done a lot more. So probably my advice, or like my one thing that I would want you to learn from my journey would be to use your free time in a very effective way.
Hmm.
So like maybe a summer holiday or like your winter holidays in December. Yeah, you have fun, you enjoy, like take some time off, go for a trip, but always try to use the free time to learn something that you probably wouldn't if you were a full-time student.
Hmm.
It need not be something academic, like it can be some new hobby, or learn an instrument or learn a language. It can be anything, but just something productive. I think I could have done something productive during COVID or any other break I had. So, I like my prime years of studying went away in COVID, like second and third year. Like that's the most important year in my curriculum, and I think I could have studied a little bit more.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, thank you for sharing. Maybe high schoolers currently listening might not like have COVID and quarantine in their undergrad, but I
Yeah,
feel like what you said is very relevant, like summer and winter break, and
yeah,
also like free time at university, like Saturdays and Sundays. How are you spending your
exactly.
Saturdays and Sundays
Yeah,
at
yeah,
university?
exactly. Yeah,
Um,
some
the way
long
I look at,
weekends.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The way I look at it is like if you're on chill mode,
Yeah,
absolute chill. Like don't think about studies. Enjoy
yeah,
that time to the fullest.
yeah,
No guilt. And then when you're in work mode, we get into work mode, and we
exactly.
lose the distractions.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I
exactly.
I love the point you made about building skills, which could be even non-academic, but
Yeah,
it's keeping the learning going because sometimes
exactly.
a break, and I'm starting to feel this. I feel like I'm very detached from the whole like learning and studying, and I have to
100%.
like get
Yeah,
back to uni and get back into it. Maybe that'll take me like
yeah,
2, 3 weeks. Uh,
correct, correct. Yeah,
but like
that's exactly what I meant. Yeah,
doing any sort of like online course, as you said, instrument,
yeah,
language, just building some new skills, hobbies,
exactly.
passions, even though that may not be like course content.
Yeah,
Somewhere down the line, it might be useful.
correct.
Doing
100.
a lot of people spend summer doing skills that like their nature won't give them. And so let's say someone is doing like in your case, someone's doing like biology and medicine, maybe
Yeah,
they spend the summer learning like programming or improving like
correct.
communication skills
Yeah,
or learning
100%.
basics of like finance and economics.
Yeah,
So like building skills which your degree won't teach you, but which you feel are like anyway useful in your later life,
yeah,
personal and
yeah,
professional. So
100%. Yeah,
yeah, I think that's a good point. Let's go back in time.
yeah,
Let's rewind chronologically. Let's get to like, in fact, this is quite a few years back now. So I
sure.
I, I jokingly say that a lot of like art class might be like even a memory test for you.
Yeah, true.
But if I were to get back into like your 10th, 11th, 12th days, I would have to talk through how you ended up doing your specific course at Manipal, at Mahe.
Yeah,
Let's start with what actually pushed you to pursue this specific course of like clinical pharmacy? Anything that
yeah.
specifically that interested you about doing this field?
So if I have to go further back for high school, I was in a boarding school. Like since at the age of 13, I left my home and I went to boarding school. And there I actually picked up interest for biology there. Like I liked it a lot. I used to perform well in biology and chemistry in my school. And the thought of pursuing health sciences was put into my head by my parents, like the typical like study something technical and advice my parents had back then. In this was 2015, 2016, about a good almost a decade ago.
Mhm.
So that's how the thought came into my mind. But now, like when I look back and I think about it, I don't think I could have pursued any other subject, like
Mm.
maybe economics or finance. I'm interested, but it doesn't sound like me. Like I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed biology. So that's one thing that I have to give credit to my school teachers in my boarding school. Like they were really good. Like they taught me so well, and yeah, here I am. And about pursuing clinical pharmacy, at the moment, I didn't have much of a justification as to why I'm pursuing this. But now that I think about it, I don't think it was a bad decision. No regrets.
Mm. Awesome. Apart from like 8 to 22 is
Yeah,
I these are like important years, a lot of changes and a lot of learning.
correct.
For many people, this is the time in college. And so on one side, they're filling their brains with like knowledge and wisdom and like learning
Yeah,
a lot about their field.
correct.
Setting that aside, like apart from academically, what do you feel is important for somebody to learn between 18 and 22 from like non-academically?
One huge learning that I'd say somebody has to come across would be ethics. Like, they need to get their moral compass straight, like build character basically. As a teenager, you tend to do certain things that may not be straight as per somebody's moral compass, but 18 to 22, you can learn what's right, what's wrong. Like you could be a snitch as a teenager, and like that's okay. Like yeah, you did something wrong. Like that's okay. But 18 to 22 is the time where you make character corrections, I can say. So that is something very important. Like learn some values like friendship, loyalty, such emotions, like positive emotions. I think it's very important. That's very important learning, and getting your priorities straight in life. Like what's important to you, what matters to you. Like who are you? Like basically paint a picture for yourself.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that's very important. Apart from academics, as a character building, that's very important.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that what you said is sort of ties into what I've been thinking about recently is sort of like at college when I'm away from home to parents, who are the type of people I'm actually surrounding myself with? Like
Yeah,
who are the people who I'm modeling? Who's my close friend
yeah,
circle? Do they have like
exactly.
similar values as myself? And so
Yeah,
college is
yeah,
either the time like surround yourself with people who take your
correct.
values like downhill and sort of don't
Yeah,
have the ideal values, or you
correct,
can absolutely be with people and you will find people at college who have like great ethics and great values and morals. And I
correct.
think spending time with them and modeling them, if they
Yeah,
can become good
exactly.
friends, that actually like shapes a lot of like your core like
Correct.
personality, values, beliefs for maybe the
Yeah,
next
yeah,
10, 15 years of your life, like 25 to 40.
exactly. Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so I think
and
that's an important base we touched there.
yeah.
Let's get back to Mahe. I want to talk about at Mahe what have been some super enjoyable aspects about studying there, and on the other side, what have been some less enjoyable aspects of studying there.
Uh, I'd start off with enjoyable aspects. So I can say one very nice thing about Mahe is how much of freedom they have given their students to learn. Like you don't have to stick to your classes. You can go to professors. They're very approachable. You can talk to them anytime. It's very easy to have a 1v1 discussion in Manipal as compared to any other university in India. As I've spoken to my friends from other universities. It's very hard to get hold of their professors and sit face to face and talk to them. But in Manipal, it's very easy. Just send an email. Almost all professors respond. If it comes from Manipal Learner ID, almost all professors respond within a day or two. And it's it's very nice to know that when when you're stuck with some learning, there's somebody to always support you, which I think is very very important. I've had so many one-on-one learning sessions with my professors, and I think that's a very important aspect. And one more nice thing about Mahe is the crowd that comes there. Like almost everybody is very very ambitious, and they discuss something purposeful, functional all the time. And I think that's very important. Like what kind of discussion you have with your friends, and how it pushes you towards thinking bigger and things like that. So I think that exposure of good friends and faculty is a huge plus. And the kind of people they call for guest lectures, they're very informative, like experts in the industry. So that's one very important aspect, I think. Will Like initially, like when somebody comes for guest lecture, you might think, oh, what is this? Why do I have to sit for this lecture? I don't find it very interesting. But a few years later, you'll when you think about it, like you'll know so much that, oh, that guy had told, I know this guy. I had seen him. He had come for a guest lecture in Manipal. So that's a very nice thing I felt while when I'm close to almost graduating. And now coming to the cons, I think a lot of curriculum that they still follow is a bit outdated. Like the curriculum has not been changed in about 20 years, but they don't stop you from learning something new, and they almost always encourage it. But the curriculum per se, like what comes in the exam and what they test you on, that's a bit outdated. Like there are some lessons and some modules I can just throw away and it won't make any difference to my
Hmm.
learning, to my current learning. So that is one con. And there are some faculty that have been teaching for about 40 years and they haven't kind of updated themselves. So maybe that can be one reason why nobody has pushed for a change in curriculum, because it's a huge effort, right, to change the entire curriculum. So that's all. That's about it. It's a con.
I think that's pretty comprehensive. We had like two or three pros, we did two or three cons. Um, let's talk
Yeah,
about professors for a moment. I feel like
sure.
one of the most valuable investments you make in college is like the investment in the relationship with a professor,
Yeah,
regardless of what you want to do, like whether you want to be a professor, whether you want to go into academia, or even whether you want
correct.
industry and work. I feel like maintaining relations with professors in college and after college, never
Correct.
harmful, always
Yeah,
potentially beneficial. Um, and especially those one-on-one interactions. Like I'm sure you have like big classes where it's more of a lecture style, but
yeah,
especially taking professors out for like coffee or lunch or going to office hours, one-on-one chatting with them, getting to know them,
yeah,
them getting to know you. That's where a
yeah,
bond actually builds.
exactly.
Let's talk
Yeah.
about some of those one-on-one interactions, especially the one-on-one interactions you have with your professors. How were those actually valuable to you? Like how did they help?
Yeah, it really put things into perspective for me. Like my professors, they tell me outside the class, they'd be very open about what part of my learning is more apt to today's world, and what are the skills that what are the skills that are non-negotiable,
Hmm.
and some subjects that I can just study to pass the exam. They'd be a lot more open with it when I speak to them 1v1 than in class, because in class they have to say no, no, everything's important, you have to study this. So that is one thing I think was a huge plus point. And apart from that, it's just nice to know what your professor's interests actually are. Like I think there's a huge difference in their opinions in front of a class of 200 students and in front of just one student who is looking up to you.
Hmm.
I think they're a lot more truthful about things when you speak to them alone. One more aspect that I think is very important is build a network. Like building having a professor's network slightly puts you over your peers when you're about to graduate. Like they know a lot of industry experts, and when they're discussing about somebody from let's say a recruiter comes to the professor and says, look, I have this requirement, I need some students. You'll be probably one of the names that'll come to his mind at the top of his head, like, oh yeah, I know this guy, like he's good, you can take him. So I think having that network is a huge advantage.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty comprehensive list.
Yeah,
If I would add maybe one last item, this is applicable to students who maybe are like just very intellectually curious, very passionate about a subject. I think one-on-one chats with a professor allow you to go deep on certain niches which can't be covered in a class. So if a lecture is like
exactly,
ABCs, with your professor you get to talk like D, E, F, and so on and so forth. So if there's a
exactly.
specific niche in like pharmacy or biology or computer science that you're super interested in, and your
Yeah,
professor has some knowledge or experience there,
yeah,
office hours are actually like, or one-on-one interactions, the time to actually like, pick their brain, get
yeah,
literally years of knowledge in like an hour-long conversation. I think there's like
100%.
no bigger payoff than that.
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
Let's talk through again. I applied only to the mainly to the US, and so
Yeah,
I'm very well versed with how US applications work. Whenever I
yeah.
have someone who's outside of the US on the podcast, I'll have to begin by just 101 talking through what was the application process. So if you at a high level, if you had to break down what were the different components of your application process.
The application process here in India is slightly different to what you would have used in USA. It's a lot more quantitative. Like you just write an exam and better your marks, better your chances of getting into a good university. So I just for Manipal, I did the same. I wrote an exam. I wrote an entrance exam, and depending on how good your marks are, you'll either be accepted, waitlisted, or you didn't make the cutoff. You'd be rejected, and that's about it. I wrote an exam and I got in. That's all.
Hmm. That honestly, that has pros and cons. And so some students
Yeah,
love a very straightforward application. What's good
yeah,
about yours is like you definitely know like if you have this cutoff, you're getting in, or if you don't, you're
yeah,
not getting in. The US
exactly.
is very
Yeah,
ambiguous in terms of like you never know whether your application is like good enough to get in, what's the cutoff, what are they looking for.
yeah,
So it's definitely
yeah,
straightforward,
yeah.
quantitative, simple in that sense. Um,
Correct.
I want to
Yeah, and
actually.
basically your essays. Sorry. Yeah, I was saying basically your essays and your soft skills, all those things, they don't hold any value in your application process. Like it doesn't matter if you are founder of a company. The,
Mhm.
it doesn't matter if you don't do well in the exam, you don't get in. That's it.
Okay. Got it. Since the exam is so important, I actually want to take a bit of time, talk through this in depth, and actually pick your brain a bit here so that
Okay.
hopefully this is helpful for someone. Imagine there's someone listening who's in high school,
Yeah.
currently working on like preparing for their entrance exams to, let's say,
Yeah.
a Manipal or other good bio programs.
Yeah.
Anything you'd like to say to them in terms of tips or tricks or how to have a better strategy when preparing?
So yeah, for the exam part, like I can say being disciplined is a lot is very important. Like when you're in 11th and 12th, like when the exam is nearing, like it's very important to not to focus on high yield um, like subjects and high yield topics than to study, to just go chapter by chapter, like learning everything there is. Like it's a lot more efficient to just learn few high yield parts of a lesson and just move on to the next. Like, when you get closer to the exam, I think that's a very uh, efficient way of scoring more. It may not be a very nice thing to follow if you want to learn more, but just in terms of scoring marks, I think that's it's important to let go of a lot of not so important bits.
Hmm. I'm sort of a big believer in this whole 20-80 concept, 80-20 concept, which like I think this applies well to exams. This got me a decent amount of success in school and even at university, which is sort of 20% of the topics are what you should be giving 80% of the importance to because there's those few very,
Yeah,
very important topics. This is what most of the paper will be about. This is where I want to
yeah,
focus. And the other 80% of topics, just touch
yeah,
upon, spend 20% of your time there, brief,
exactly.
just have some knowledge.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
the way you get to know about that is actually paying attention in class, talking very openly with your teachers and
correct,
professors, asking
correct.
someone was giving the exam. That's how
Yeah,
you get to know like what are actually important focus areas and what can be like completely left to the side. So it
correct.
makes your whole job a lot easier, less
Yeah,
ambiguous. That's
yeah.
important.
Very
Um,
true. That's a very nice way to put it. 80-20. That's very interesting.
Let's talk about exam day specifically. I know a lot of people who do a great job, they're disciplined, they prepare
Yeah,
well. Something goes wrong on exam day. For
yeah,
everyone, it's different. For some people, it's sort of just anxiety and stress. It's the environment, the atmosphere, some sort of peer pressure, but something happens and then they just do very badly on the exam. And that's a
yeah.
waste of like a lot of effort. So, exam
Very true.
specifically, any tips and tricks you want to share? That this is more from the point of view of like just staying calm and like doing your best.
It's just practice. That's it. Like you need to take multiple exams before you take the actual exam, and you need to like kind of simulate the exam environment at your home. Um, like keep everything aside, just you and the paper for 2 or 3 hours, whatever the exam duration is. Like just don't do anything for those 2 hours other than answering your paper. That'll I think that's a very good way of building confidence for the exam day. And one more thing is like these multi when you're in 11th and 12th, you have multiple tests throughout the year. Considering every test as a final exam is one way
Uh,
to deal with the stress, I can say. Like, oh, if I don't do well on this weekly test, I'll not get into this university. Like, just tell yourself something like that, and it'll slightly put some false pressure on you, and which will help you deal with the real pressure of
hmm,
the
hmm,
exam
hmm.
day. So,
Yeah, I think that's a good point. For me, it was the SAT, which is like a
yeah,
different ball game, but that's more just English math heavy.
yeah,
Even there, what I didn't do well, like what I genuinely wish I had done better, was actually done more practice exams because I sort of
yeah,
solved the problems, I understood the concepts, but I never created that atmosphere of actually the exam atmosphere. I didn't take it seriously enough. So even in like in the middle of the exam, if I want to take a break, drink water, use the washroom, refer to
yeah,
my notes for one question, I allowed myself that. I think I shouldn't have done that. Like at home,
yeah,
being very,
exactly.
very serious about those practice exams,
Yeah,
simulating the time, simulating the exam atmosphere, no
yeah,
breaks, no checking your textbooks or whatever.
exactly.
That's
Yeah,
important because then on exam day, you'll be like, okay, I've done this before.
yeah,
There's some
exactly.
level of comfort here.
Exactly. Yeah,
That's important.
true.
If we were to sort of wrap up the last two, three questions and wrap up this discussion,
Yeah,
uh, if I had to again, if I could take you back in time, 2015, 2016, those whole 2 years, 11th and 12th,
yeah,
if I give you a chance of sort of knowing what you know today, if you could
yeah.
read your entire application process, and this is not just Mahe, this is
I
not just
understand.
even if it was abroad, what do you
Mhm.
think you could have done differently? What do you wish you had done differently?
Completely away from my opinion in the beginning of the podcast about going abroad and not staying in India and things like that. Like knowing what I know today, if you ask me what changes I do, is I probably look at multiple scholarships. Like I think I had the grades for it, but I just never applied. Like uh, I had later once I joined university, I saw a lot of my friends from school whose grades were not as good as mine, but they got fantastic scholarships.
Hmm.
They did their research well. I didn't do mine, and I think that is one thing I think is
Hmm.
a big mistake. And I think everybody who's applying should seek for a scholarship. And if they think going abroad is not a big problem for them, or if they have some relatives in some state in the states, I think it they should definitely consider cracking a scholarship.
Yeah.
I think that's a there are hundreds of scholarships that students just don't know about. Like, so that is one thing I regret not researching when I was in 11th and 12th, which I
Hmm.
think everybody should. And yeah, that's about it.
And to be very honest, I don't know how it works in India, but in the US, it's
Yeah,
not just academics. Like if you're very good at sports, you get
yeah,
scholarships. If you're
yeah,
an awesome like musician, you get scholarships. If
yeah,
you're like, amazing with debate and MUN, you get scholarships. The whole point
yeah.
is trying to make you very valuable for the university, like telling the
Correct.
university, feed me, I have these skills. If I
Yeah,
go and participate in competitions, which could be non-academic competitions, like let's say I go and
yeah,
play football with your university, I
yeah.
will ensure we like improve our name and sort of do a better job. All
Yeah.
of that get you scholarships. As you said, I think a lot of it is effort and research. Very important.
100%.
There's so
Yeah,
many programs out there. Use
yeah, yeah.
ChatGPT, use whatever,
Exactly. Yeah,
just
yeah,
get to
yeah.
know.
In fact, I feel there are so many students who have multiple non-academic talents that go wasted when they apply in India because the admission committee just doesn't care about your non-academic progress. And I think there's a lot of talent. There's a huge talent pool in India, like people that have represented states and participated in massive sports tournaments, uh, like musicians and artists that have won competitions at a very high level. All of it goes for a waste. Like it could have earned you a scholarship, a full fee paying scholarship, but it went for a waste because you didn't do your research well. So
Mhm.
it pains when a big talent is not utilized
Yeah.
to its best needs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true. So that was our first section. That was before university. We've already covered a lot of ground. What we'll do now is fast forward in time. I want to talk about this 6 year span of time that you spent in Manipal at Mahe and the specific aspects of that, which I want to like sort of give a sneak peek for high
yeah,
schoolers as to what to expect in university. What do university students even do? What
yeah,
is important to like prioritize and optimize for in college?
yeah, yeah,
Start with internships, very valuable time to gain experience, to build skills, to make connections,
yeah,
not something to like slack off on. Even one or two great internships over the 4 or 5 years will take you a long way once you like get into your career. Let's
right,
talk about two big internships you did. The first was a 3 month internship
yeah,
with ICMR, so the Indian
yeah,
Council of Medical Research. And the second was actually you went all the way down to Australia, did
yeah,
a research internship for 4 months,
yeah,
University of Sydney. So let's talk
yeah,
about these experiences. But what I'm particularly curious to hear about is sort of what sort of value did they bring you as a person, as a professional?
yeah. So, actually, I did not do my internships during my summer. I did it on during my while my curriculum was happening. But I got a no objection letter saying I'll do all the coursework at my own pace and I'll write the exams myself. And so what happened was, in my first year, I did not apply for anything during my summer. I chilled in my first year, and second and third year went away with COVID. And in my fourth year, I applied for multiple internships, but I applied during summer, so I didn't exactly do much in my fourth year summer as well. But in the fifth year, I went to Indian Council for Medical Research, and I did a 3 months health communication internship at a research center called Vector Control Research Center in Pondicherry. So it was a very nice experience for me. First internship learning on, and it is a very high yield internship, I can say. Only 30 students all over India get it, and I was one of them. And felt good to do something outside the curriculum for the first time in my fifth year, almost the end of it. And after this internship, I applied for another internship. But this is not a so this actually touches upon the point I was mentioning about keeping in touch with your professors and being in their good books.
Mm.
So a professor from Manipal of mine, he got me in touch with another professor from University of Sydney, and they usually do research together. They have a lot of collaboration that they have done before, and they were planning on a research internship, and they conducted some recruitment and I got selected. I was one of the four students to go to University of Sydney from Manipal and to pursue a research paper. And that was a very out of the box experience for me, going out of India. It was my first time, so I enjoyed a lot. I learned a lot. It was very informative. Um I I have a lot of memories from the 4 months I had in Sydney, and yeah, that's about it.
Especially since it was your first time leaving the
Yeah,
country, going sort of not even to a neighboring country, but like quite
yeah,
far away
correct.
comparatively to
Yeah,
Australia. Can you talk a bit more about sort of what were your learnings in that new environment? What was the
mm,
personal growth like?
yeah. So first thing I had, the moment I landed was a big culture. That was a big culture shock to me. Was how important language is. Like I used to think that I know English very well, but I had a very tough time picking the Australian accent. Like so that was a like culture shock to me. Like I did not know that like accents are so hard to comprehend, and I had a very nice time knowing the work culture there. Like it's very relaxed. There's a lot of work-life balance. My supervisor, basically the professor, he'd ask me to like just stick to the schedule. Like you don't have to work overtime. You don't have to do any extra time. Like come at 8 in the morning, leave at 4 in the evening. Like that's it. Like if I cross the 4 o'clock mark, he would remind me to go back home. Like he by 3:30 he'd remind me to pack my bags. This is something very new that
Yeah.
I saw in Australia. In India, it's like the more number of hours you put in, better you are. So like it's very competitive here. It's a lot more relaxed in Australia, in Sydney. So that was one thing I think is very important to, like, take some time out of your work schedule. And I like that. Like, basically, if I'm in a meeting, like, you can just, if you have to do something important, you can say, I'm so sorry, I just have to take this call, and you can leave the room, take the call, and come back. But here in India, it's frowned upon to leave a meeting midway. Such like very small things about the work culture, that I think makes a huge difference in terms of how happy you feel when you get back home from work.
Mm.
That's that's a big learning that I had when I went there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the beauty, I think, of it, even if you're not studying abroad, if it's possible for someone listening to do an internship abroad, is I think I
yeah,
want to double down on like work culture. You will learn about like Indian work culture
exactly.
has pros and cons, Australian work culture has pros and cons, American work
Yeah,
culture has pros and cons. If you can try and have like the best of both worlds, so let's say you have the hardworking nature of our culture plus the good work-life balance
correct.
of the culture, if you're able to somehow integrate that, that
Yeah,
becomes a winning combination. So like the
100%.
smaller nuances you pick up over there, smaller things about their work culture, if you can come back
Exactly.
and integrate that into your work, which you do back in India, even if that is back in India, that
Yeah,
is actually awesome. That's like a
very
win.
true.
Uh,
Yeah, 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 100%.
let's get back to academics at Mahe. And since you
Sure.
were actually studying for those 5 years, I'm sure there was that was important and there was a lot going
Yeah,
on. If
yeah.
you had to give a brief summary of actually the 5 years in 2 or 3 minutes, what's a high level overview of like what did your course teach you over those
Yeah.
5
So my course is something new that a lot of people do not know about. So what we study is something called clinical pharmacy. Like, it's a component of a subject called pharmacology, which basically deals with treating diseases with tablets or any medication. It may not be tablets, tablet, syrup, injection. Basically, treating a disease with a medication. That that is pharmacology, and that's what we specialize in. Um, any case that comes to our clinic, we try our best to treat it with a medication instead of pushing for surgery. And we try our best to minimize interaction between drugs if there are more than one. Like, and it happens a lot of time. Like, a lot of geriatric patients, like basically elderly patients, they take about 10-15
years?
tablets a day, and a lot of them would be unnecessary. So this is where we come in. Like, we check what are the medications they're taking, and if there is something that they don't need anymore, we just take it off the list. And if there is something that's harming them, we replace it, that with another drug that has the same effect but it doesn't harm them. So this is our job as a clinical pharmacy, as a clinical pharmacist. Our job is to make sure that your therapy is at high efficiency. We are basically drug experts.
Hmm.
The subject, it's called therapeutics. The subject. So in hospital, we fall under Department of Clinical Pharmacy.
Perfect. I think that's a very good overview. Even someone like me, like
Yeah.
so just for your information, I'm absolutely not a bio person. I dropped bio in it, haven't picked it up since. So that's a
Yeah.
good ABC explanation for someone like me who doesn't like even know the ABCs.
Yeah.
With having studied what you studied, with such a degree in hand after graduation, again, for
Yeah.
listeners who maybe are hearing this course for the first
Yeah.
time, what are a few potential career options this could lead to?
So there are multiple career options, but the two main option that like almost everybody prefer are, one is a research field, like where, like, you do a PhD and you become an academic, and you look at, for example, like if there are two drugs A and B, how do you know that drug A is better than drug B? for this particular disease. So you do research, like you see what are the effects people with A have, what are the effects people with B have. So this is one field where clinical research, a lot of people get into it, and the other field is hospital practice, like where you go to a clinic and you actually treat the patients. So these are the two main fields, practice and research. And I usually I like to be in practice, but somehow my CV so far has taken me and built my skills towards research. But at some point, I'd like to get back to practice.
Mm, I think it's interesting. What I would argue is actually that I think they're complementing skill sets. And so even if someone wants to
Correct.
get into practice, I think doing research in college and doing that
Yeah,
as internship is
100%.
useful in some way. Even if someone
Correct.
wants
Very
to do
important.
research, doing like internships and doing like corporate
Yeah,
work, that is also valuable. I think they're like
correct.
my ideal sort of university experience would be a mix of proper
Yeah,
working internships
correct.
plus a bit of like research on the side. Because I think
Correct.
like
Correct.
theory and practical becomes a good combo
Yeah,
again for
very true.
academic.
Almost nobody does just practice anymore. Like every hospital requires their practitioners to have some level of research experience, because that's where the advancement comes in. Like, so for career growth, it's very important to have research background. On earlier, like a few decades ago, there would be people who would just not do any research, they'd just be plain practitioner. But that's almost extinct now. Everybody does research.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay, let's jump outside the classroom. We were talking about chilling and relaxing, that we went into an academic discussion.
yeah,
Let's get
yeah,
back to non-academics.
sure.
Outside of your textbooks and the classroom and the lectures, how
Yeah.
do you spend the remainder of your time throughout a typical semester at Manipal?
So Manipal being a university town, like university is a major part of the town. So we'd have a lot of fests, a lot of comedians coming for a stand-up show, because there are thousands of students in the university who are living away from their home. So it's a very big audience, and that age group of audience is perfect for a fest and like any event, any recreational event. So we'd have a lot of fests, a lot of artists coming to Manipal for a show.
Hmm.
So we'd spend our time with like going to some show or stand up. And then there's a lot of sports facility also at the university, and very affordable. People would go to, almost everybody in Manipal has some sports touch to their time at the university. And a lot of other times we just chill, like sit with friends, have a cup of tea in the evening, just talk. Uh, Sometimes just sit and do nothing in a room full of friends. Uh, uh, just have fun.
Those are like genuinely some of the sweetest memories in college. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
if I were to look back at my first year, I might not
yeah,
remember specifically in the 12th class I learned this concept, but I do
yeah.
remember like a walk on the beach I took with my friends on the last day
Exactly.
before we like flew back home.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
creating those, I would say like those are not sort of wasted moments. So those are not like time. Those are actually good
100%. Yeah,
memories.
yeah.
Um,
Exactly. This is one, yeah, this is one big learning I had after going to Sydney is don't see your time where you do nothing as a time waste. Like, don't, like this is one thing I learned after going to Sydney. Like people take their free time very seriously. They do not uh, like to, like do any take any work call on a weekend. They just go fishing. They just fish for hours. Like,
hmm,
and
hmm.
if they come back empty handed, they're still happy. So
Yeah, yeah.
they don't see that as a waste of time or energy. So this is one change in mindset that I had. So every time I watch a show or go to beach with my friends, or uh, waste an entire, like not waste, spend time an entire evening, I'd go back with the guilt that, oh God, I didn't do anything productive the entire evening. Like, let me sit and study for an hour, or let me sit and do something for an hour. Like, somewhere at the back of my head, I'd have a little bit of
Hmm.
guilt, but over time, I've learned that it's important to let go. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I think especially incoming freshmen need to hear this.
yeah,
Someone who's going into a new environment.
yeah,
Also, in
correct.
freshman year is the point where you're trying to prove yourself to your peers and to your seniors and your
Exactly.
professors.
Yeah,
That's great. Like, do that, create good impressions, work hard. But
correct.
also, like a lot of Ivy Leagues, the top universities in the world have this culture of work hard, party hard. And so
Exactly.
Monday to
Yeah,
Friday, their students will be in the library, and then Saturday, Sunday, you'll see them all at the parties or like whatever.
exactly.
That is
Yeah,
important for like some level of balance, actually.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Indian students don't have this, and I think it's very important for them to adapt to work hard, party hard.
You mentioned that two of your years went away in COVID.
Yeah,
And so your college journey was in that sense a bit unconventional. I think
correct.
this question is still interesting to be asked, which is you've had a 6 year college journey essentially.
Yeah,
If you were to like again on a very high level differentiate each of the years, what was different about like year one versus year two versus year six? Was there anything different?
yeah, yeah. Like almost everything. Like I could say. So basically, when I joined in my first year, my entire first year went away just dealing with the excitement of coming to university.
Hmm.
After 11th and 12th, 2 hard years, you go to university where you're fully free. Like you feel like you've accomplished something in life. You're already sorry. You feel like yeah, that's it. You've achieved what you have to, but that's where the real struggle actually starts.
Hmm.
And it took me a year to realize that.
Hmm.
And I'd look up to my seniors as like some subject matter experts. And when I came to sixth year, I didn't in my final year, I didn't feel very different to what I did in my first year, I guess, to my seniors. So I think that's it's just a change in perspective that I think has changed over the years. So yeah, my first year was mainly just me dealing with the reality that yeah, my 11th and 12th is over, and I've come to university, and there are different priorities in life now. And second year, I actually started studying seriously, and like started putting effort into my like actually scoring and learning something, learning the concept very well. My first year was all about just getting through, and the second year I actually studied a lot. And at the end of second year, COVID happened. So third year and fourth year, first half of fourth year went away in COVID. So there during COVID, I didn't really have much of a mindset towards the university level. I was just relaxing at home, so not really that significant in terms of university
Hmm.
experience or anything like that. But in my fifth year, like my actual learning began. Like fifth year is where we have tough subjects, high yield subjects like clinical research and epidemiology and subjects like that, where you almost learn the skills that you're going to immediately use when you
Hmm.
get into the outside working world. And sixth year is our internship, where we get some vocational training. Like we are actually put into the field, like it's like a tester year. So that was fun. Like I learned a lot. Like everything fell into place. Like when I was in third year, fourth year, reading my textbook, like why am I reading this? What's the point of reading this? All those questions were answered in my internship year.
Hmm. Sometimes it takes patience. That I was a
Yeah,
very curious and slightly a non-conformist child in school, and so I
yeah,
would always be asking teachers like, "Why are we learning this? Why
yeah,
where is this useful?" Sometimes all it takes is patience because when you get like when you start with intro courses,
exactly.
maybe
Yeah,
it's a sneak peek into the subject, and then 3 or 4 years down the line, you realize, okay, this is where this fits in. You sort of build
yeah,
that puzzle, if I were to use that analogy. You have all the
correct,
pieces and you start like piecing everything together. This is how this subject works. This is why everything
exactly,
is useful.
exactly.
I want to get back to what you said about the transition between high school to university. A lot of the first year is just, especially the first semester is just, I am here, new place, new people, get settled. I am a college student now.
Yeah,
Um, Immediately, for many of us, our parents are no longer there, our home is no longer there. So that immediate sense of freedom and
exactly.
autonomy,
Yeah,
it's scary and exciting at the same time. That's a
correct.
pretty like rough jump for most
Yeah,
people. And
correct,
so hopefully the jump will be rough, but I feel like if we can inform listeners about what the jump is, that at least allows them to get some clarity. And so my next question
correct.
to you would be, what are those big differences between high school and university? Like what is something that you had to learn differently, or what is something you were not so well prepared for when you jumped into
Yeah.
university?
So in high school, there's somebody to there's somebody giving you a feedback constantly on your performance, like are you doing well? What can you do more? Like there are teachers at your school, like lecturers, or like at home, your parents are slightly like managing your academic performance, and somebody is actually taking a note of what your previous test mark is and what should be your target score for the next test. Like there's somebody else also involved in your performance apart from yourself. But in university, it's just all on you. Nobody cares about your progress. Your professors couldn't care less if you pass or fail. Your parents are away from you. They don't really micromanage your
Mm-hmm.
studies. But so it's all on you. Like so that is something new, big difference that it took me a while, because if in my first year, if I didn't do well on a test, I'd just not care, because my mom and dad are not looking at my marks. The
Mm-hmm.
professor doesn't even know what my mark is, and so that was something new. Uh, and like just the way the teaching works in 11th and 12th, the teacher is a lot more involved in the subject and in the class. Like they use chalk piece and on a blackboard, or a marker pen on a whiteboard, and they actually teach with the drawing. And in universities, they just come with a presentation, or they just come with a few papers and like case studies. And the teaching methodology is a lot more different, and um, a lot more different, and it's not very conventional, I can say. Like because all the way from your grade 1 to grade 12, like you're being taught from a textbook. And there, when you come to university, there's no textbook as such. You can read from a from Google Chrome. You can read from an article. You can use Chat GPT to study. Like there are a lot of new ways of learning, lot of new resources that you never thought can be resources. Like just a new I have learned so many things from a news article. Like I've actually prepared for an exam starting with a news article. So I never thought that could be possible when I was in 11th and 12th. So
But I think that's important because
yeah,
of I see university as a transition from like a teenager to a fully autonomous adult in the world. And it's
correct.
important that we have that phase of like maybe demotivation or distraction, or just, I know people who spend it's like the first semester just lying in bed playing video games
Yeah,
and partying. They don't care about it. Then maybe second semester onwards, they realize, okay, now it's on me. I have to
yeah,
self-study. I have to be
yeah,
self-motivated. Why am I at university? What am I doing here?
correct,
My
correct.
plan after university. Um, that learning curve is very important because
Yeah,
once you realize why you're at university, why are you pursuing XYZ course, the motivation comes from within that. Like, I want to study, I want to interact with
correct.
professors, I want the internship. This is
Yeah,
why I want the internship. So I think, as you said, a big difference is sort of in high school, even if you're not very motivated, there are people
yeah,
to sort of push you and motivate you. At university, the whole game, I think, is just self-motivation.
yeah,
You can spend a whole day skipping classes. No one is really going to notice, apart from like
yeah,
your best friend or your roommate. And they will also only check in once. They won't go like ask three, four questions. It's
exactly.
absolutely, I have the motivation to wake up at like 7 a.m. and go to the 9 a.m. class because this is the value I'm getting from the 9 a.m. class. Um,
Exactly.
but
Yeah,
that's important. Uh,
true.
let's if I now that we're on this topic, I think university is a time again where you're very free and autonomous. A lot of
Yeah,
students, unfortunately, get into a lot of bad habits. And I by bad habits, I don't just mean smoking, drinking, drugs, parties, blah blah blah. There's a lot of like
yeah,
bad mindsets and habits which start at university. Things like skipping lectures or sort of bad sleep
correct.
schedules, bad diet schedules. All of that also is
Oh, yeah,
pretty much possible at university when no one is like spoon feeding or micromanaging. In
yeah.
your experience over the 6 years at Manipal, any common bad habits or dangerous traps that you're seeing a lot of your peers falling into?
Yeah, one big bad habit I think is I don't know if this is a very unusual way to put it, but following false prophets. Like basically, what I mean is somebody that you think is a field expert, like some senior that you look up to, and just mimic everything that he does. That can be a bit stressful, because like every individual has their own pace, and that
Mhm.
just students tend to put unusual amount of pressure on themselves, just looking at somebody else, some maybe a classmate or a senior, and try and mimic their actions. I think that's a very wrong motivator to do things, and they listen to expert advice from somebody who's not an expert. So I
That's
think I think I think that's a bad habit. And one more, like I can say, like you mentioned, like disrupting sleep schedules and having a bad diet. Those are the usual bad habits that every late teen or early 20s students have. And apart from that, like from behaviorally, like I think psychologically, I think this is a very bad habit that a lot of people pick, is comparing themselves to peers and seniors and trying to mimic somebody else's path. I think that's a wrong direction to take.
Mhm. Yeah, peer pressure is a big one at university.
Yeah,
And a lot of people, it takes until after graduation to realize that the peer
yeah,
pressure was not a good thing and that
yeah.
they didn't ever fully overcome it. And a lot of decisions they made at
True.
university were because of like FOMO, fear of missing out,
Correct. Correct.
or sort of that peer pressure.
100%.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
let's actually, I want to spend a few minutes with you on this actually.
yeah.
I don't believe like there's a one size fits all or like a very straightforward solution
Exactly. Yeah,
sort of everyone's
exactly what I was
journey.
saying. Yeah,
Um, but what
correct.
if someone is like listening and currently struggling with a lot of like FOMO and peer pressure, what do you want to actually say to them? Like how can they begin to overcome that?
Just know that you can always catch up. Like there's no rush. Like basically, let I'll give a anecdote. So my a lot of my classmates by the beginning of fourth year, they'd already done an internship, but I hadn't. So I felt like I'm lacking behind in my career. I felt like my entire career is gonna get ruined because of this, because I've wasted 4 years. Oh my god, I didn't do any internship.
Mhm.
But by fifth year, I did a slightly high impactful internship that basically put me at par with everybody else. And within a span of 1 year, I caught up to my friends who had been working at their own pace over the span of 3 or 4 years. And I think that's very important to know, that even if you're lagging behind, it's okay. You'll always get a chance to catch up. So don't worry about it. Relax. Yeah,
Yeah, I love it. One is there a lot of the rush is like in your mind, and maybe there
yeah,
isn't that much of a rush. And
yeah,
number two, also what I think about a lot is like my path is like different from my friends, and so I don't need to be
yeah.
like following exactly what they're doing. I
Correct.
want to also be
Yeah,
doing like what I
exactly.
want to be doing. And so maybe even if they
Yeah,
have internship for the summer and my summer, let's say in my case, was doing this podcast, like this was what was
yeah,
important to me for the summer. Maybe for
yeah.
them it was like a Google internship or like a Facebook internship.
Exactly.
But because we have different paths, we want like different things out of university and out of our careers. That's also
Yeah,
okay. I think.
yeah. One more thing I'd like to add. a lot of your friends, they'll do things that they're interested in, but just because it's something productive, you don't have to do it in if you don't like it. Like I'd give you an example. Like a lot of my friends, they enrolled themselves for a cancer workshop. I was not even interested in the cancer workshop. I just enrolled for it because a lot of my friends are doing, and I felt like I'm lagging behind and I have to catch. Oh my God, what if they learn something that I cannot learn if I don't join the workshop? What if they get an edge, an advantage by going to that workshop? Okay, let me also join.
Hmm.
And I hated it. Like I didn't like the workshop at all. I didn't enjoy it. So don't do something just because somebody else is doing it. Like do what you think is good for you. Like try to apply for workshops and gaining skills that you think is important for you instead of like just following your batch topper or something like that.
Mm. One thing I love doing, a senior gave me this advice, is sort of
Yeah,
being very intentional about how am I spending my time at university.
exactly.
And the
Yeah,
best exercise they actually gave me was before the start of every semester, and this can also apply to your summer break, um, having sort of physically writing down what are my goals for the next semester? Like, what do I want to
correct.
achieve? Where do I want to spend my time? What are my
Yeah,
intentions? What do I
correct.
want to be like optimizing for? In fact, tomorrow is actually my day to do that exercise before I fly out on
Yeah,
Saturday evening.
correct.
But that is very, very important. So at each semester, you feel like you spend time where you wanted to spend your time. You didn't go along with like what everyone was doing.
Yeah,
In some way, you advanced your like personal growth and your professional growth, like both at the same time. But that's an
correct.
exercise I highly recommend. Is like each semester, sit down for an hour, 1 or 2
Yeah,
days before, sit with a pen and a piece of paper, write down like 10 things. This is what I want to do this semester. This is what I want to
correct.
achieve. This is where I
Yeah,
want to spend my time. That's important.
very true. Very true.
Speaking about sort of being intentional, setting goals, I feel like, and this is a regret for many alumni I've spoken to on the podcast, is that
Yeah,
clubs at university are like probably one of the most underrated resources. Like
yeah,
few
true.
people know about them, a few people go and join them, but there's a lot of value joining the right clubs at university. It'll
Very
help
true.
like on many levels in terms of like making friends, making connections,
Yeah,
personal learning, professional learning, CV, on multiple levels. I feel like joining clubs at university is an awesome
yeah.
way to spend your time. Let's actually talk a bit about your personal experience with clubs. And so actually
Yeah.
share with us what are a few high value clubs you actually joined at Mahe, and what was actually the learning and the growth that came out of these clubs? Were they actually a useful way to spend time?
Yeah, so I joined, so again, out of FOMO, I joined a lot of clubs in the beginning of my year, but
Hmm.
I actually ended up enjoying and working for a very few by the end of it. And I believe it's very, very important. And I think in terms of not just in terms of networking, I think even in terms of building a soft skill for yourself, like
Hmm.
it need not be something it need not be a very high intellectual club like some literacy club or anything like that. Even something small like cycling club or maybe a Rubik's Cube club
Hmm.
can
Hmm.
it, even such small things you make good friends when you join a club, and I think you'll get to learn a lot from them. And usually, people you meet at the club, they're not from your class, like they're from multiple different fields. And I think it's a very good way to learn more about what's happening in the world outside your curriculum. And I have been a part of running club, cycling club, and like volunteering for community service and things like that. And I think it's very, very important to be a part of some community service club in your university, because it is one thing that you'll always miss after you leave, because
Hmm.
you don't get to do such activities once you leave university, like things like picking garbage from the beach, or like donating, having a book donation drive or cloth donation drive. How often do you do it once you leave university? So that is one very joyful thing I think to do on a weekend. And now coming back to the academic clubs, like literacy club, debate club, quiz clubs, and things. Yeah, these are extremely informative places to be. And by the end of my year, actually, I was vice president of a club called Pharmacy Literacy Club, where we'd conduct like um, patient information workshops where we'd call patients with diabetes, call patients with hypertension, and give them a free lesson on how to better manage their health. And we would conduct diagnostic events like when like we basically go to companies and call them for testing in at our university, where it's completely free. It's a screening service. You can go get your blood levels checked for diabetes or hypertension and cardiovascular diseases. So, and we'd provide counseling to them. So this was the objective behind Pharmacy Literacy Club. But unfortunately, I my internships came when I became the vice president of it. So I couldn't really do a lot of field activity. So that was a bit of a hindrance for my learning. But before that, from my non-academic clubs, I learned a lot of soft skills that are like, I can't put a price tag on them.
Hmm, hmm, hmm. It's funny, like it's funny that you say like price tag and soft skills. I feel like, and I've said this on previous episodes, that we pay for the education, for the content, but you
Correct.
pick up so many things at university which you
Correct.
can't put a price on.
Exactly.
Like I
Yeah.
built my communication skills because I spoke to like professors and peers,
Yeah.
or I
Yeah.
became
Exactly.
independent, or I met
Yeah.
these interesting people through networking
Yeah.
events. There's no
Exactly.
like cost to those, but it's
Correct.
part of the range of services your university offers. And so, like as a good
100%.
customer, because you are
Yeah.
the customer, I think it's good to take advantage of such things. All the
100%.
opportunities offered. Um,
Very true.
let's
Very
actually,
true.
now that we've brought up the topic of friendships and social life, I want to spend a few minutes here. I think this is like an important tangent to go on.
Yeah.
Um, University friends can be like lifelong friends, which stay with you
Yeah.
for many, many
Very.
years.
Very. Yeah.
But it's important that you're very intentional about finding those people and spending
Correct.
quality time with them, creating high
Correct.
levels of trust so that even after university, let's say you find yourself in different places across India or the world, you're still able to be
Correct.
in touch with them. So that
Yeah.
requires a good investment at university. So let's actually
Correct.
go through what was your process of like engaging socially, finding friends, and then building very deep connections at university. What did that actually look like over the years?
Oh, it's a very big part of my university journey. So when in my first year, we were a huge group of friends, about 15 to 20 people. We'd walk around the campus like a bee swarm. So we were a very big friend group, and it's very natural when you newly join. Everybody is a part of a big friend circle, and as the years passed, our friend circle started funneling a little bit. Like
Hmm.
the friend group got smaller, and it got more tight knit, I can say.
Hmm.
So my roommates and I, we were four of us, and we built a bond over 5 years so strong that their absence feels different to me. Like I'm not used to it. We need not talk, we need not speak, but we just sit in a room for hours doing nothing. Like entire Saturday, we just sit in a room. We did nothing. I'd be on my laptop. My friend would be on the bed using his phone. Another friend of mine would be reading his book in another corner. So we just do nothing. But even doing nothing was helping us build a strong bond between us. And they're all doing very good at different parts of the world. A roommate of mine is in Uppsala in Sweden, is pursuing biopharmaceuticals, and another friend of mine studying in USA at University of Minnesota, pursuing a PhD. Another friend of mine in UK, studying healthcare management, hospital management. So they're all over the world, like, and with the internet, with such advancement with internet, I can just get on touch with them on call. Like, if I need to learn something from that place, I can just, they're just a phone away, and I can have a detailed conversation. So I really like to have such a big friend community, but also a small tight knit circle where you can share your personal problems and like, things that you're embarrassed about, and like, they become your support system. But at
Hmm.
the same time, I have a big vast connection of friends that I know can be of help, and where I do the same. Like, if I receive a call, I probably drop what I have to do and help my friend first. So having this friend circle is very important, and and this is something that'll remain for the rest of your life. Like,
Hmm.
it is gonna, they are going to be your go-to people to call. Like, my very close friend went to University of Nebraska, and I feel like I miss him so much. When he was leaving, I was not sure if I can like, remain in the friend circle. Like, I was sure that dynamics would change, but we are okay, and I miss him a lot. And
Hmm.
I think such building such friendship is very, very, very important in your university.
Absolutely. I love that. That was a good like
Yeah,
emotional section
yeah,
on the episode. And I think if you build those high quality friendships at university, I'm sure that now, as you said, your friends are literally all over the world. But I'm sure when they come back to India, you guys will keep physically meeting up, even if that's
exactly.
once a year, once a few
Yeah,
years. That
yeah,
keeps
yeah.
it very much alive. So like
True.
keeping a friendship alive in summer is also very important, especially like let's say when you go back
100%.
home. I've been
Yeah,
honestly like struggling on that and working on how to do it.
yeah,
But being able to stay in touch, so when you get back and meet each other physically over the next semester, you're able to
yeah,
like get started versus like have a 1 week period where you're just like, okay, what's been going on in your life? We haven't been in touch for 3 months.
yeah, yeah,
Um, so that is important, like continuing it, staying in touch,
yeah,
making the effort. This is post university. If I had to
yeah,
just one quick pro tip for
yeah.
sorry,
Nice.
if I had to give one quick pro tip for even making great friends at university,
Yeah,
what really worked well for me is sort of, especially first few days, first few weeks, so you don't know anyone, is sort of testing the waters and trying to spend time with everybody because you never know who actually could become a good friend. And so
correct.
if I if I head out for lunch, I try to grab someone and say, let's go for lunch. Or if I'm going to the gym, I try to like grab two people, come, let's go to the gym. Or if I go to
Yeah,
play basketball, I grab like five other guys and like, let's go play basketball. So if you're able to
correct.
like, as you said, activities together, even if you're going to the library to study, go with someone to
Yeah,
study. Sit in silence for
correct.
3 hours. Maybe on the
Correct.
way back, you'll have a good conversation.
Yeah, yeah.
As much
No,
as you
that,
get
yeah,
shared like times together with your friends,
correct, correct.
hobbies, that's how you'll make friends.
Yeah, yeah, that became a default. Like, after the first few weeks of joining university, like, almost nobody would do anything alone. Like, even for something that my friend has got nothing to do with. Like, let's say I had to pick up a shirt that I had given for laundry service. My friend would just come with me. Like, he had nothing to do with it. Like, he just tagged along with me. And my friend, let's say he had to courier something, like, go to the post office, I'd go with him. I had no reason to go. Like, I could just sit and do my own thing, but just tag along. Like, that became a default by the end of it. In fact, the friend of mine who's studying in Nebraska, he came all the way to Mangalore because I wanted to buy a cycle. It's 2 hours away. He came with me 2 hours, and we came back in train. Like, so almost he spent an entire day with me for, like, there was nothing out of it. Like, he got nothing out of it, but we just spent time. We just
Hmm.
spent the whole day together. So such memories are something that I reminisce now that
Yeah.
university is almost ending. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The last thing I'll say here is that I think sometimes it's important to even prioritize the friendship over the work.
yeah,
So
yeah,
sometimes I feel
yeah,
guilty about this. Once in a while, if my friend is going somewhere and if I'm busy, I might like say no to them and sit down and do my work.
yeah,
That's okay sometimes, but I think there are times where it's important where you like let
Yeah,
your work aside or let your
yeah,
like productive
correct.
time aside.
Yeah,
Just go and accompany your friend in something that's important to them.
very true.
How you actually like, and then the next time they'll do the same for you. That's
Yeah,
actually how relationships are strengthened. That's how the conversations happen in that
yeah,
2 hour train ride. Those are like little
correct.
things you have to do
Yeah,
right to build a solid friendship, like at university. I think there are
yeah,
little tips and tricks or things you can do well,
yeah,
genuinely.
true,
Um,
true.
let's talk about a slightly more professional side of this conversation of friendship and connection, which is sort of networking events and conferences, and where
Yeah,
you actually meet, like, let's say, industry professionals, someone 10 years older than you, someone doing
yeah.
research, someone working in the field. When you meet such a person at an event or a conference, what's the strategy? Like, how do you approach them? What do you talk about? How do you like sort of create a good impression?
So, to start off the conversation, I'd first go with something I found interesting with whatever work they have done at the conference. I'd basically go with a compliment that I found is deserving to their paper or their presentation, and that's a good conversation starter. And from there, I pick points on how did they end up doing whatever research they did, and like who supported them, like where did they um, ask for grants, and how did they come up with this idea, how like such, which the conversation just builds. Once you give somebody a compliment, the conversation just builds from there. So that's how I approach people and at conferences that where I'd go, and that's how people approach me as well. Like they'd come and ask me, how did I end up at ICMR, like what did I do to have my application selected for the internship. And I made friends that I'm still in touch with. Like I'm still in touch with a lot of people I met at conference. Like that we've met only once in our lives at the
Mhm.
conference, and I'm still on touch with them with via emails. Like we still share ideas, we still share um, potential places where the other person can provide insights. Yeah, so that's how you build a network. That's how you connect with people. Don't waste your time at conferences. Talk to people. Don't sit idle. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. If you're going there, make the most of it.
yeah,
Think about like, let's say you're spending a weekend at a conference. You could have had a chill weekend at the beach
yeah,
partying. You went to the
yeah,
conference for a reason. Don't just be that guy who sits in the corner. Go
yeah,
and like, have
exactly.
some value from it.
Yeah, yeah,
Plus, I think what you said is something I'll expand on a bit.
yeah,
Is I think in terms of networking, a lot of us are taught how do you have a good conversation, how do you
yeah,
approach someone, what do you talk about. What I think should be talked about a lot more, which is actually even more important, is actually like after the event of the conference, how do you stay in touch?
yeah.
And that is more important because let's say you just
Very
meet once and you forget about the person. 5 years down the line, they might not remember you. But if you're in
correct.
touch once a month,
Yeah,
in a few months, you just check
correct.
in. How are things going? What are you working on? What's been up?
Yeah,
This is some interesting
yeah,
opportunity that might be interesting to you.
yeah,
That is
true.
what keeps a network alive. And I think
Yeah, very,
especially doing this with people who are like someone who you think might actually be important for you in the future.
yeah,
That could be like a professor, an
very
industry
true.
professional, someone older than you who might be a mentor.
Yeah,
Them in touch is very, very important. At minimum, what I like to do is like, especially for a few people in my network, is I just send them every month a basic life update. Like this is what I've been doing, this is what I'm working on.
yeah,
What have you been working on? Like what's
yeah.
new? Um,
Correct.
that is
No,
more
one.
important.
Yeah. 100%. I learned this very late in my university life, and I think that's very, very important. Like that's a good mention. Like it doesn't have to be a very productive conversation. You can just say hello, like maybe like wish them a good New Year, or wish them on Christmas. It doesn't really have to be anything to do with your work or their work. It can just be, what's up? Did you watch the game last night? That's just to remind the other person that you exist. I think that's a very important way to keep in touch. Like, I wouldn't do this earlier, but I'm slowly starting to incorporate this. Like, just say hello to people once in a while.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay, I think no episode can be comprehensive in terms from in the sense that I think that there is so much to be talked about in terms of the university
Correct.
experience that each episode just cannot cover everything. But by far, I would say this episode we have touched on a lot of bases. We talked about like academics, internships, social life and friendships, networking, chill time at college. So I think we've touched on as much as we could this episode that was possible. It's been like even if not 360, maybe we've done like a 270-degree like college
Correct.
experience.
Yeah, yeah, sure, surely. Yeah, we have touched a lot.
So we've covered a lot of ground. I think
Correct.
what we'll do now is before we get into the fast fire round of questions, I would love to
Yeah,
ask you where you see yourself 2 to 3 years from today. You're about to graduate in November with a
yeah,
degree in clinical pharmacology.
yeah.
Career-wise, 2 to 3 years down the line, what do you think you'll be doing?
So first, I would like to start off my career with some research experience. So like probably get into some project that involves a lot of like research in terms of drug development, like getting a new drug into the market, like doing some clinical trial, or write some paper on some methods or some interventions that we've tried at the practice that have worked very well. So I would like to start off my career like that, and after 2 or 3 years, either I'd get into practice, clinical practice, or become an academician, like pursue a PhD and probably try for a professorship somewhere.
Okay.
That's my plan.
Awesome. To end on a slightly more exciting and a fast-paced note, we'll jump into our fast fire round of questions. So this is just a few quick
Sure,
questions which I'll be throwing at you. Feel free to also be answering
sure.
very quickly and briefly with me. That's sort of why I call it the fast fire round. Um,
Yeah, yeah, I get.
let's begin with any one wise quote that has stuck with you over the years or inspired you in any way.
Yeah, I know one quote that I had it in the first year. A low-hanging fruit is always sour. If something is very easy to get, that means there's not much of a significance to it. Like that's what it means. Or if something sounds too good to be true, it's not worth your time. Yeah,
That's a good one. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Doing hard things at university is important,
yeah,
over the
yeah,
easier things at
yeah,
university.
yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I find the quote is very well put. Low-hanging fruit is always sour. Like easy to grab, not worth the effort. Yeah,
yeah, I love it. What's over the 6 years? I'm sure you had many, many classes and courses you took. Any
yeah,
one super fascinating or just very interesting course you took over
yeah,
the six
yeah.
years, which like comes to mind?
Yeah, so I had a workshop on wilderness medicine, which I find a very fascinating field. Like, basically, it's about how you handle cases with snake bite, or bear claw injury, or a bison stuck with their horn, and adventure sports, injuries from adventure sports like skydiving or scuba diving. So, all such injuries fall into the discipline of wilderness medicine, which I find very fascinating.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds
Yeah,
like a fun class.
yeah,
I There are many biology concepts I couldn't understand, like for the life of me. That's why I did after nine.
yeah.
I'm sure you're like much more passionate about biology than me, but
Mhm.
it's a complex field.
Yeah.
What's any one bio concept or bio term that you're still really struggling to understand?
Oh, that has to be histopathology. Like histopathology is where you look at the tissues under a microscope and try to look for a fault in it. I just cannot I cannot um I'm very bad with microscopes and cells, and I cannot differentiate between, like, I find it very hard to differentiate a healthy cell and a diseased cell under the microscope.
Maybe someday.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
any one specific sweet memory you're about to graduate? It's been quite a few years in that ecosystem with the same
Yeah.
people. Any one
Yeah.
sweet memory that comes to mind that you want to share on the episode?
So, every evening after our college hours, my friends and I would hang out and have tea. Just a glass of tea, but we'd sit there for more than an hour, just talk about how the day went and some small instance that happened in the class. We'd laugh about it. Sometimes, like some small fight that happened, we'd try to sort things out. So just spending time in the evening with friends over chai. That's
Mhm.
probably my my best memory. Like every day at 6 o'clock, it kind of pinches that I'm not with my friends.
Yeah, I like to call these like sweet nothings. Like it seems like
Yeah,
nothing, but it's like very,
yeah,
very sweet, and like
yeah, yeah,
you remember that years later also that
yeah,
this is what we used to do at 6 p.m. every day.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
Last of the fast fire, and this is for
Yeah,
you specifically and very personal question. What was the most challenging aspect of university for you? The most challenging part of being at Mahia?
yeah. That most challenging for me would be self-learning. Like when I was in school, like teachers would tell me what my pros and cons are, and they'd let me know what's the subject and what's the topic I need to focus more on. But in university, nobody does that to you. Like you have to self-assess, and there's a lot of self-reflection and things like that. So that was a big challenge for me. I found it very hard to know what I don't know.
Hmm. Lastly, if you had to
Yeah.
wrap up what's been a wonderful episode and a wonderful conversation, any final words to listeners, someone who's quite younger than you in high school,
Yeah.
still thinking about university, about to jump into university, into a completely new world, then enter like the big world, life at large. Any final piece of advice or wisdom you want to share with them?
It would the My final piece of advice might sound like a repetition to what I said before in this podcast, but I'd like to reinforce. Basically, just do not try to catch up to someone. Like everybody has their own pace. Do things that like it's okay if you want to restart something. Like it's okay if you started off with a degree, you do not like it. No worries. Like after the first year, you can drop out, try something that you actually like. It's okay to take a gap year,
Hmm.
I think um, being less competitive is important for self learning. Like I think that is one thing that I'd like to tell again, reinforce again to my audience, that it's completely fine to be different. like uh, don't let anybody tell you what you can do, what you cannot do. If you do not like it, like start from scratch. Doesn't matter how old you are, at 23, 24. Let's say you started off with let's say finance, and you just don't like it. Like it's okay, drop finance. If you like baking, learn baking. Like
Mhm.
so, just do what gives you happiness. That's it.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
If listeners really enjoyed the episode, they want to connect and reach out with follow-up questions, or just want to like say hi and maybe even just chat a bit further, what do you think is a good way to reach out to you?
I actively check my mail, so my email would be the best. Like Gaurav Girish at the rate 13, Gaurav Girish 13 at the rate gmail.com. That would be the best place for me to respond. Otherwise, if they just want to look me up, my LinkedIn, just Gaurav Girish is my LinkedIn name, and you can, if they want to get with get in touch with me personally, Gaurav.Girish is my Instagram handle. You can uh, text me anytime.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'm hoping people reach out with
Yeah,
questions and comments on the episode or
yeah,
something they want to learn more about.
sure,
Um,
sure.
Really enjoyed the conversation. I learned a lot. I'm trying to get a lot more Indian universities on the podcast. It's a completely different mindset and approach to like my approach and mindset at a US university. So I love
Yeah,
learning about like how our country's education system actually works,
yeah,
pros and cons. But yeah, the episode taught me a lot. I came in not even knowing the ABCs. Now I feel like I know the ABCs,
yeah,
But yeah, thank you for your time, Gaurav. Really enjoyed
That's great.
it.
I'm glad to be of some use to your podcast and your audience.
All right, that was the episode. To all the young listeners out there, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something new, and I hope you feel more energized, inspired, and curious for the exciting university journey that lies ahead. Stay tuned. Many more wonderful episodes to be released on Uni Unveiled across a diversity of majors, countries, institutions, and speaker profiles. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel Uni Unveiled. This podcast is just a small part of a much larger initiative undertaken by my family called Serene Strokes to spread positive sparks of growth, transformation, and joy among all our audience. Check out our official website www.serenestrokes.com. In the description and comments, please feel free to share other topics and questions which you would love to hear about from our different speakers on this podcast. Until then, take care and remember that this big word, university, may not be as scary or as intimidating as you think it is. Thank you for listening to Uni Unveiled.